This video was brought to you by HelloFresh. I so desperately wanted to work a cooking with scorpion gag into this video, but unfortunately it's gonna have to wait until the next Mortal Kombat video, whenever that may be. But anyway, school's back in session, arrivederci, you little. And if you don't got the time to stand in a checkout line or grocery store and you still want to give your kids some food worth talking about when they get back home, HelloFresh is here to make you some wholesome meals lickety-split from the comfort of your own home. And the options certainly aren't lacking. Take your pick from 40 chef-crafted recipes every week, even including quick and easy options that'll make sure you got some good eats faster than just giving up and using a fast food app for the third time that week. You know exactly who I'm talking about. There's something for everyone here, and there's more than just dinners too. You can also choose from over 100 items to round out your orders, like snacks and easy to make breakfasts. Also, you can easily take some great food with you on the go and waste little time. Everything's delivered directly to your doorstep in a single box, packaged and portioned just right so that nothing goes to waste. And it doesn't even matter if you're not a good cook. HelloFresh orders come complete with easy to follow instructions, and with the ingredients being delivered from the farm into your house in less than 7 days, you can be certain their ingredients are delivered fresh, ensuring the best quality. And as I've highlighted before, that's perfect for someone like me who works from home. I get caught up in a lot of video editing and streaming, and I simply don't have the time to go out and get what I need to make dinner. With HelloFresh though, all the good stuff comes to me. That's convenient you can't beat. So go to HelloFresh.com and use code 50SCMJ at checkout for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com, code 50SCMJ at checkout for 50% off plus free shipping. You can also scan this nifty little QR code you see here to get yourself moving just by using your phone. Oh, isn't that nice? Thank you for continuing to help support this channel, and whatever you decide to make, I hope you enjoy yourself. But let's continue on with the show. So my memory is a little hazy about this, but by late 1992, despite being only around 5 years old around this time, I already acquired a taste for video games. And it was a pretty standard stuff, Mario Brothers, Sonic the Hedgehog, and strangely in my case, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. We used to go to corner store pizzerias and Chinese food joints all the time, each of them rocking one or two arcade machines like Spy Hunter, something from Neo Geo, or Street Fighter 2. But one time we went to a store that had Mortal Kombat from Midway, and I couldn't take my eyes off it. The digital graphics were nothing like I've ever seen before. The sound effects were so realistic and impactful, but I wasn't ready for what followed after the match ended.
Finish him. Johnny Cage win.
Holy shit, that guy just uppercutted the other guy's fucking head off. It was my first real exposure to ultra violence in video games. This game had people being burned alive, their heads being ripped clean from their shoulders, getting knocked down a pit and into a bed of spikes, and breaking people's property in their downtime. That was somebody's anvil. This was Mortal Kombat, and for a few decades now, it's remained one of my favorite fighting games in the genre. It, along with Street Fighter, would help shape my taste for fighting games for the years to come. Now, I'll go on and say that while I always thought Street Fighter was the better game mechanically speaking, I always loved the setting, characters, and aesthetic of Mortal Kombat a lot more. The story can be hit and miss, and we'll get into it especially when we eventually get to the later games, but I mean, Mortal Kombat as a child, man, this game had everything that was cool for me. Martial arts, mystical powers, gods, monsters, multicolored ninjas. And it didn't matter that I was well below the recommended age for this series. I just wanted to keep checking the game out. And my parents, they didn't give a fuck about that either. A general rule of thumb for them back in the day was, people could be ripping intestines out of someone's ass all they want, as long as there was no sex, not even a nipple. So just to reiterate, this was fine.
Kung Lao wins.
But not something like this. I am just teetering on the edge of getting this video demonetized. Like, honestly, I'll be very surprised if this video somehow manages to get away scot-free, but if it ends up coming to that, that's what the sponsor's for. And you guys supporting me on Patreon also make this a hell of a lot easier to even think about doing, like, mentally anyway, So again, thank you very much. Anyway, for this video, just like the Street Fighter video I did a few years back, this is more of a personal retrospective and celebration of Mortal Kombat, rather than an analytical critique on it. Seems appropriate, we got the new game coming out, Mortal Kombat 1. That said, I'm also going to be breaking this into a few videos because I genuinely want to look at every major Mortal Kombat game available, from the 2D beginnings, the attempted spin-offs, the jump to 3D, and finally when they decided to go really hard on the story. I'd love to hear what you guys think of Mortal Kombat as well. Did you grow up with it? Is it one of your favorites? Do you not really care for it? You'd rather play something else? And let's get that conversation going in the comments. For today, I'm going to be focusing on my time with the first few games, and there's no better place to begin than with the 1992 original. A long ass time ago, the evil sorcerer Shang Tsung was banished from Outworld to Earthrealm. That's basically what they call Earth in this series. I do wonder if other planets are just called like, Mars Realm, Jupiter Realm. Pluto Realm was a thing for a bit before people stopped giving a shit. Moving on, Shang Tsung would look to take over Earthrealm's Mortal Kombat tournament, a competition created by the Elder Gods that are usually held to pit the realm's greatest warriors against each other for the sake of maintaining balance and order across all the realms. Shang Tsung, however, wants to tip the balance towards chaos so that his emperor, the mighty Shao Kahn, can conquer Earthrealm and wipe out all of humanity. So with the help of his four-armed, half-human, half-dragon companion Goro, Shang Tsung would go and win every subsequent Mortal Kombat tournament for the next 500 years, leading Earthrealm to become dangerously close to getting conquered by Outworld. In fact, should Earthrealm lose the next Mortal Kombat, well, that's as good as gone, so it's up to the remaining 7 combatants to participate in Mortal Kombat for the sake of saving the realm, though I think only a few of these guys are selfless enough to do that, if they even know of the stakes in the first place. I assume most don't. A lot of these folks want to win the tournament for personal gain or get themselves out of a bind. I mean, what, Johnny Cage is a movie star and probably thinks winning the tournament will help improve his station. Kano is a mercenary who wants to take over the tournament for himself and cause mayhem because he's an asshole. Sonya, a special forces agent, wants to stop Kano but was captured by Shang Tsung and needs to win the tournament to save herself and her team. Then Sub-Zero, simply paid by someone to kill Shang Tsung. And Scorpion wants to avenge his clan and family after they were killed by Sub-Zero's clan, or so he thinks. And finally Raiden, at least in this game, it's funny as shit considering the kind of character he ends up becoming after the second game, but no, he's just entering the tournament because he's bored. And should he actually win, he ends up destroying Earthrealm after inviting other gods to the tournament. What an asshole! No, the only one even remotely qualified, I think so anyway, is Liu Kang, a Shaolin monk that personally despises Shang Tsung and knows full well what the sorcerer is capable of. Sure enough, canonically speaking, Liu Kang is the one who ends up winning the tournament and saves Earthrealm from certain doom, delivering a good kick to the gut of the dastardly Shang Tsung. Whoever you decide to pick, you're in for a series of matches, as you can see here. The worst part for me was always the 3 back-to-back endurance rounds. It's you versus 2 opponents with 1 life bar, and it's just the fucking worst. To me, dealing with these was the true final challenge. If you took too much damage before even beating the first dude, you might as well reset because the other dude would just fuck you. The penultimate fight against Goro is pretty tough too, don't get me wrong. He only has to hit you a few times before your health just vanishes like a magic trick. But he's plenty beatable and pretty easy to manipulate. Shang Tsung to a similar extent. Now he can transform into any of the other combatants and his fireballs in his normal form deal an unfair amount of damage. I mean, what the hell, but still, he's only one dude, an old dude at that. One I don't mind kicking in the face and watching him do a sweet rave dance as he collapses to the floor. My eyes hurt. Mechanically, the original Mortal Kombat is nothing complicated. You have 2 types of punches and 2 types of kicks, both high and low respectively, that also change depending on the direction held down. Like if you hold back on the joystick while hitting high kick, you do the sick roundhouse, while holding down and hitting high punch will let you do the classic uppercut, which always felt great to connect, if it did. Are you kidding me? You could pull off special moves with proper combinations, though unlike say Street Fighter, button combinations were often rigid and stilted. You don't gotta worry about doing a quarter circle forward punch for Sub-Zero's ice balls, for instance. You just gotta hit down forward and punch and watch as your opponent duck under it anyway. Oy. The one thing I never liked about this game, and for future games, just a heads up, was that Mortal Kombat gave the block its own button, which didn't feel anywhere near as natural as just holding the D-pad or joystick backwards away from your opponent. I shit you not, because it required a whole ass button, and because in the arcade machine, God, I remember this as clear as day, it was placed smack dab in the middle of the other buttons. I often forgot it was even there. I just hated pushing it. I hated the idea of pushing it. I know this is more of a me problem. I'm not sure what others feel about this, but in Mortal Kombat, blocking is something that just doesn't feel good to use unless I absolutely need to for a specific opponent or a special move or a fatality that requires you to hit up, because you know what you do when you hit up? You jump. Hate that shit. With only 7 characters to pick from, you're not given much choice. You know, early 90s fighting game and all that. I think you were still bound to find someone to your liking. For me, I always gravitated towards the ninjas Scorpion and especially Sub-Zero, who ended up becoming one of my favorite characters in the franchise. Scorpion could not only teleport to the other side of the screen and give the opponent a good old dope slap, but he could throw this kunai with a rope attached to it and drag his opponents toward him for a hard-hitting uppercut. Sub-Zero could freeze opponents in place and lay on the damage, but my favorite move was always the slide. It was great as a follow-up from another attack or catching your opponent off guard because of how quick it came out. Liu Kang was another one of my favorites, and I think he was meant to be the beginner-friendly character by design because his special inputs aren't at all complicated. He had a fireball, a flying kick, and he rocked those Reeboks like a future champ, and he had one of the easiest finishes to execute, even if it was lame as shit.
Liu Kang wins.
But on that subject, this is what made Mortal Kombat stand apart from other fighters at the time. The idea of not only winning 2 rounds against your opponent, but then afterwards, finishing them with a special fatality. You could straight up kill your opponent by inputting the proper button sequence needed after the game tells you to finish them. Now, whether you could do it is a whole other issue. Some fatalities require some strict button presses, at the correct distance at that. Most of the time, I couldn't do it, either because I mistimed the button, I wasn't standing the proper distance. If a move required me to be at sweep distance, I fucking died inside every single time. Assuming I even had enough time to get the setup right, because you're not given much time at all to execute a fatality, especially in the arcade release, where I swear the window of opportunity is only like a microsecond. But you pull it off, you watch the screen go dark, hear that foreboding jingle, and then watch your character eviscerate their felled opponent. Combined with, at the time, realistic digitized graphics, this caused a huge stink with parents and other moral guardians. Enough of a stink that Mortal Kombat, along with the likes of Night Trap and Lethal Enforcers, would be one of the main reasons why the Entertainment Software Rating Board, or ESRB, was even created, requiring companies to accurately label the kind of content their games had, and then give it a proper rating to identify their intended audience, which I don't think was much of a standard at that time. On top of this, certain home console ports of Mortal Kombat even removed the excess blood and guts like the Super Nintendo version, which not only altered all the blood to look like sweat, making me really think these motherfuckers need to get a towel, I mean my god. But some finishers were completely changed too. But it's not all that bad. Instead of Sub-Zero ripping off the head of his opponent, he deep freezes them instead and then shatters them with a solid punch, which, pardon the pun, I still think is pretty cool. With Raiden, instead of popping the head off with electricity, he just zaps the whole body and turns them into dust, which is just awesome when you can actually manage to pull it off. Oh god. The Sega Genesis version also suffered a similar compromise, at least on the surface. The game by default is just as censored as on the SNES, but by inputting a special code on the prologue screen, famously known as the blood code, you could re-enable the blood and such, and there you go. You got your ultra violence back on a version of the game that is otherwise ugly as sin. But you know what? If I had to pick a version of the game to play on home console, assuming you just can't get the arcade original, it'd be the Genesis version. And make no mistake, the first Mortal Kombat was released on everything back then. If you were one of the few that had an Amiga or a personal computer like MS-DOS, congratulations, you can play the first Mortal Kombat. But if we're talking about the consoles folks were actually more than likely to own, it was the SNES and Sega Genesis. And yeah, the Genesis version is much better than I remember it. Ugly, limited graphics and color palette aside, the character grunts also sound wet and gross. Gameplay-wise though, it feels much closer to the arcade original than on the SNES, which despite looking better, suffered from input lag and made certain things, like Raiden's fatality, next to impossible to execute. You see that? That took me 20 fucking minutes of reloading save states just to do that once. Finally, Jesus Christ. The Genesis version, in my opinion, also has the better soundtrack, exploding with Genesis twang, but the compositions still slap. It was fun going back to this, and it helped that I had Elliot assist me with the multiplayer stuff. So Elliot, if you're watching it, again, thank you for all your help. Every time I head back to this, my headspace always goes back to the early 90s where this game was everywhere I went. It reminds me of simpler times before I learned what the word debt was or interest rates. But when I think of classic Mortal Kombat, and that's classic spelled with the letter K if you're curious, it's not the first game I immediately think of, it's the second game, Mortal Kombat 2. Licking his wounds from his previous defeat, Shang Tsung heads back to Outworld to get a verbal thrashing from his master Shao Kahn. On the verge of death, Shang Tsung manages to convince Shao Kahn to give him one more chance. The plan is to host the next Mortal Kombat in Outworld, luring Earthrealm's warriors away from home, giving Shang Tsung and Shao Kahn home field advantage. As such, this ends up being a much more dangerous tournament. Anything goes and there's more combatants to spice things up, like the deadly twins Katana and Mileena, and Baraka, who I can't look at without thinking of his laughable appearance in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Fuck that movie. There was also Kung Lao, professional hat tosser, Jack, Sonya's partner who likes to grab a bitch and punch them in the face. Even Reptile was promoted to playable in this. A dude who started as a secret unplayable fighter in the original game was now fully playable in this. And he looks so adorable when he wins too. You can just hear him go, "I did it, Dad." And this is something I always liked Midway for. The first Mortal Kombat was the subject of a ton of schoolyard rumors back in the day. Stories of hidden fatalities or secret characters that may or may not actually exist. The only way to know for sure was to keep pumping the machine full of quarters and seeing for yourself, something that Midway jumped on like a rabid code monkey, taking full advantage of people's curiosities by fucking with their expectations, only for them to then fully commit to the idea with the next game by making those once unplayable characters selectable or by just making rumors a reality. It was a fun way to mess with the audience that also kept the money flowing, outside of the AI being insufferable. Awaiting at the end of the tournament was Shao Kahn himself, and he loved to mock your ass with verbal insults before he tackled you like a football player. A real tall motherfucker too, definitely fitted the bill of final boss. Though I love that real life actor of Shao Kahn, Brian Glynn, was actually not that tall. He had to be digitally scaled up to meet proper final boss status, and I just find that funny. Still, what a physique. Like, short or not, I would not want to get into a fight with this guy. The digitized graphics in Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3, generally speaking, have aged about as well as you expect, but I still find it endearing, especially because behind the scenes, the cast always looked like they were having a bunch of fun doing martial arts in front of a blue screen. It wasn't something unique to Mortal Kombat at the time. Pit Fighter, released in 1990, also featured digital sprite work, as well as the 1988 Reika Doshi Chinese Exorcist. But that was with dolls and not human beings. What the hell is this game now that I'm looking at it? And after Mortal Kombat, a bunch of other games were trying to emulate this style to varying degrees of success. You be the judge of it. I think Mortal Kombat did this style the best though. The sprites and animations were just as smooth as butter. I even had the pleasure of meeting Daniel Pesina, the actor that played Johnny Cage, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Reptile back in the first two Mortal Kombat games, 1 year at a Too Many Games event. My autograph table was next to his for that weekend, and the dude throughout the whole thing was just the best guy in the world. He signed my physical copy of Mortal Kombat 2 on the Genesis, and then on our downtime when we weren't doing anything, he offered me some drinks, and I took him up on it, and it was very pleasant. Very happy to experience that. I adored Mortal Kombat 2 growing up, playing it equally on arcade machines, the Super Nintendo, and on the Sega Genesis. Next to Street Fighter 2, it was my most played fighting game of that era, possibly of the whole decade, thinking about it. I couldn't get enough of it. There were more characters, and they had multiple fatalities on top of that. The control was better, the graphics were better. God, this game's aesthetic is just sublime. The sound design was superb, not to mention having great music. There was more blood, and back at home, it wasn't censored. Yeah, even the SNES version had blood. Soccer moms be damned. They even added these new friendships that take the piss out of the whole thing as both a middle finger to complaining parents and to utterly mock your opponent. If that wasn't enough, you can also just straight up turn your opponent into a baby with the new babality. I never quite got this. What's so cool about turning your opponent into a baby? It just seemed weird to me. Unless you knew how to glitch it. Oh, I'm fucked up. Outside of maybe one of the handheld ports and arguably the Japanese-only PS1 release, it was also hard to come by a bad version of this game. Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis, both were more than serviceable. Again, I gotta say, I was surprised to see how well the Genesis version held up. It's nowhere near as ugly as before, and it controls like a dream. Yeah, it sounds a little worse, wet farts are all over the place here, but I'll take that over the squished resolution that the Super Nintendo version seems to suffer from, which is so weird because I don't remember the sprites looking this squished back in the day on a CRT. If given the choice though, I prefer the arcade original. On an actual cabinet if possible, that graphic with Raiden showing off his powers was always so cool to me. I was just happy to find an excuse to play this again. It's by no means a perfect fighting game, obviously. The balance is all over the place. It's cumbersome utilizing some characters because of awkward special ability inputs. I got the biggest pair of nostalgia goggles on when I say this, but this still remains my favorite old school Mortal Kombat. It did what a sequel should have done and improves from the original in every way imaginable, and the effort showed. This game was wildly successful for Midway. It pushed a ton of units and made Midway millions on arcade sales alone, turning Mortal Kombat into a multimedia sensation with merchandise, comic books, a couple of animated shows for kids, the intended audience, and a few movies which I had the pleasure of watching. Well, I mean, I enjoyed watching the first movie. That still remains one of my favorite video game adaptations of all time. Like, even today, I think it holds up really well and has great fight scenes. The animated shows, I never watched those, and from what I've been told, I ain't missing much outside of Sonya screaming combat time.
Combat time! Combat time! Combat time! Combat time! Combat time!
God, I'm almost ashamed to admit that I actually saw Mortal Kombat Annihilation in theaters when it first released back in 1997. I mean, my grandpa just wanted to take his grandkids out to the movies, so, you know, it's not like it cost me anything, but I still wanted a refund. And I'm thinking about it, this was 10-year-old John I'm talking about, and I still thought, hey, this sucks. It's terrible, but it does make for a good time to riff on with friends and family, like I prefer my classic Mortal Kombat experience, so it's kind of appropriate, wouldn't you say? But yeah, Mortal Kombat 2 was always my go-to Mortal Kombat game. But I repeat, you play it with friends or family because Mortal Kombat 2 otherwise is an unplayable piece of shit. Single player in this game, even on the lowest difficulty, is absolutely horseshit to the point of being completely unfun. And I mean, even for arcade standards, we all know these games are designed to gobble up quarters or at least make you rent it more than once at home, but MK2 somehow still managed to be a fucking jerk about it. The AI not only unapologetically reads your inputs, but counters them perfectly with one-frame moves, or shit that's just straight up impossible for a human player to do. Without learning how to cheese the AI with certain moves with certain characters, you're not winning against this cheating scumbag shit, and even when you know how to game the system. I don't think there's a sense of fulfillment. I'm just glad it's over and then I move on. But you gotta do it if you want to see past the, oh lord, the third stage. And there's like 10 plus matches in this damn card. At least they got rid of the endurance rounds from last time. They just made everything else much worse. Fuck this game's single player. And to think it's just as bad, if not worse, in the next entry, Mortal Kombat 3. So in the end of Mortal Kombat 2, Shao Kahn is defeated, he turns to stone, and then he explodes. But he gets better, and fed up with tournaments and all that jazz, he just decides he's gonna invade Earthrealm by doing this convoluted thing where he has a shadow priest resurrect his former queen Sindel back in Earthrealm, which gives Shao Kahn permission to invade Earthrealm to reclaim his wife. But then he figures, well, I'm already here. It's conquering time, waging war against all of Earthrealm and nearly wiping out all of humanity save for a few warriors who need to work together to stop Shao Kahn's ambitions once and for all.
War. It's fantastic.
I want to make clear from the get-go that I don't really think much of this game, and I mean, not even back then did I care much for it, which is so weird to me in hindsight considering how much I love the second game. I don't know, maybe it was because I wasn't exposed to this game as much as I was with Mortal Kombat 2. Maybe it was a different aesthetic. This game has a more contemporary setting. There's still mystical elements thrown about, but you got a bell tower now, a subway station, a city street, and it didn't hit the same as the fantastical locales from before. The revamped character designs for some returning characters I didn't like much of, like the new look for Sub-Zero. He's not a ninja anymore. Now he's just a American Gladiator contestant. I also didn't vibe with most of the new roster. Stryker looks more like a security guard for a mall than an actual cop. The robots, Cyrax and Sector, even for Mortal Kombat, seemed out of place for me. I liked Cabal though, and Sindel was alright enough, and despite sounding like a drowning dog when she got hurt, I really liked Shiva, the four-armed Shokan. Whatever the reason, I just didn't play much of it, and this indifference that I felt for this game would also bleed into my lack of enthusiasm for the upcoming Mortal Kombat 4. But with that said, after revisiting Mortal Kombat 3 for this video, I think this is the best one mechanically speaking. Movement and control are ultra smooth even more so than Mortal Kombat 2, and my ambivalence of the characters aside, there's still a healthy roster to choose from. A lot of returning players from before at that, though the original Mortal Kombat 3 didn't have Scorpion in it, and that's just a fucking war crime. He was later added in the updated re-release Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, which had more characters to pick from on top of balance changes. Oh yeah, Midway was now starting to do that Capcom approach of giving their fighting games more content. Now that's the price of success, I tell ya. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 is the version you should be getting though. I don't think there's a reason to even consider the original Mortal Kombat 3 anymore, unless you really have a hate boner for Scorpion or some other shit. Combat is not only a little faster than before, but they also added this run button that lets you close the gap faster so you can eat shit. Okay, I never liked the run button. A separate block button was one thing, but needing another to move slightly quicker? I think the game's already fast enough, so I don't think this really added anything other than another button to press on the arcade counter. God, look at this configuration. It's a mess. I could make an arrow with how all over the place it is. Oh man. Complementing the faster combat was the new dial-a-combo system. Essentially, it's the ability to string a bunch of attacks together with the right button sequence. If you're really good with it, you can even perform one of those fancy new brutalities, taking a page from Killer Instinct probably, where you literally beat up your opponent so hard and so fast, they just fucking explode! Good lord, how many rib cages, skulls, and arms does a person need to be whole in this universe? With that said, I'm split on dial-up combos. They're pretty fun to use once you learn how to do them. Each character has their own selection of them too, which you can thankfully look at a move list in something like the arcade collection to learn the proper button inputs. At the same time, I feel most of this game amounts to who can do the most dial-up combos in one round, and a lot of them look alike to me, which I feel strips some personality away from the gameplay. Everyone's still got their own set of special moves and techniques that sets them apart, and good players can find the means to combine both aspects of a character's individuality and their potential combo game, but visually, in execution, a lot of it ends up looking the same to me. But I should stress, this is just from my personal experience. I don't really follow the tourney scene for this game, so I might be missing something here, but given my history with future games after this, I don't exactly miss this system. Mortal Kombat 3 never managed to garner more than a meh for me, despite the clear improvement in gameplay. Again, the game looks crisp as fuck. I think the digitized graphics are at their best here, and the animation and effects are top notch, and it feels great to control, but I didn't like what it changed, and strangely, I find the production values a mixed bag. The fatalities, for instance, I find most of them a step down, and a lot of it has to do with how cheap some of them look in terms of quality. Cutting off limbs or other body parts in this game just looks like you're dismantling a cardboard cutout. Look at that. Why are the arms just floating in midair like that? These games always had a sense of humor, sure, but even for Mortal Kombat standards, this just feels too goofy, borderline Looney Tunes. I never care for the new animalities either, assuming you can even do them. It has to be on the third round, so you gotta make sure you lose one round to even consider doing these, and then when you win, you have to do this mercy technique to give your opponent back some health, then you beat them up again, and then you can do the animality, where you transform into an animal and finish them off. That's a lot of work for something I don't even find that cool, and apparently so did the devs, since I think Mortal Kombat 3 was the only game to feature these. But Mortal Kombat 3, Ultimate or otherwise, is still a solid entry in the series. I just find it difficult to go back to because of my ambivalence, and because if I know I'm playing this for myself, I gotta deal with that horseshit AI. I hate Jade so much. Can you fucking stop it? Not even something like Mortal Kombat Trilogy can get me back into it that much. This version brought back just about every character from the earlier games up to this point, including a bunch of secret characters. Look at this roster, it's ginormous. But it's still a glorified extension of Mortal Kombat 3, using the same combo system and sharing the same somewhat cheap production values. Still, you can get this for about $10 on, is this pronounced GOG or GOG? I never remember that shit. Still, that's not a bad deal at all if you're curious enough to get this. Thanks to Elliot, I also found that the Nintendo DS port of Ultimate, of all versions, is also damn good, which shocked the hell out of me because growing up, I found the handheld versions of any Mortal Kombat game to be passable at their very best, but most of the time they were mediocre or downright horrible because of limitations and cut content. And when I think of Mortal Kombat 3 on a handheld, I immediately think of Mortal Kombat Advance for the GBA. And folks, words cannot do justice on how dog shit this port is. I'm not gonna bother wasting my time. It's something you gotta see for yourself. You can easily find videos of it on YouTube, or hell, you know what? Just check out Matt McMuscle's videos on it. I'll leave a link in the card up top. You're welcome for that extra 2 cents of revenue, Matt. Anyway, let's give Shao Kahn one last kick in the ass and move on. I loved his death animation in Mortal Kombat 3 because I always thought Shao Kahn sounded like he was trying to be a dirt bike while dying. Our last game for today is Mortal Kombat 4, and if you thought I was indifferent before, Mortal Kombat 4 was barely a blip on my radar. It was Midway's jump to 3D for the series, and you know what? That was a big deal for them, and they went ham on marketing. I remember the magazine advertisements. I saw the arcade cabinet all the time. You couldn't miss it because you had the new character Quan Chi staring at you like he caught you masturbating. My step-uncle back in the day used to run a corner store pizzeria, and besides X-Men vs. Street Fighter and Cruisin' USA, there was also a Mortal Kombat 4 machine, giving me my first real exposure to it. And even then I remember thinking, Bottom line, Mortal Kombat 4 was just a weaker Mortal Kombat 3, which I already didn't like as much as Mortal Kombat 2. I thought the combat animations looked cheap and the dial-up combo system was sort of brought back, but it lacked the impact and crunch from before. It introduced this new weapon system that lets you wield something like swords, clubs, boomerangs, and you can cause some chaos with these, or if you got bored, you could just toss them at your opponent like a jerk. The version I decided to play for this revisit was Mortal Kombat Gold, the Dreamcast port that added more characters. And I mean, as far as the quality of the port, it's alright. The graphics are fine, the sound is good, and for the most part, things work as they should, I think. But it's clear the graphical leap is about the only standout thing about this entry, and even then that hasn't aged the best either. In fact, I think it's aged worse than the digitized graphics from the earlier games. I don't know, there's just something about the character animations that look off. Liu Kang is playing the invisible guitar here when he wins a round. Scorpion or Sub-Zero after winning a match looking at the camera like they didn't know it was there. Huh? What the hell is Shinnok doing here? The FMVs only further emphasized how Barbie doll-like the anatomy was, especially for the girls. Seriously, I didn't know vaginas could be that wide. You know what though, the FMVs characters get for endings? The best thing about this game on PlayStation 1 and on the Dreamcast. These are hilariously bad with stilted acting, bizarre animations, and laughably terrible cinematography, but they cross the awful threshold so far that it circles back to being good. They need to be seen to be believed. Oh my god, in the arcade and N64 release at that, these were done in real time, and they all have the look and energy of an unfinished school project. My favorites were always Scorpion and Sub-Zero's ending, and it's for the same reason. It's because of Quan Chi. That bitch slap he gives to Sub-Zero sends me every time. Or when he tries to banish Scorpion to the Nether Realm only for Scorpion to suddenly rush him and catching Quan Chi off guard. Look at him scramble. It's like, oh, fuck me. I love these so much. They're so bad. Oh man, these are probably worth the price of admission alone.
What?
Not for nothing, Quan Chi I think ended up being the best thing about Mortal Kombat 4. I know this isn't where he technically debuted, I think that was an animated show first, but combined with that goofy stare on that arcade cabinet and his fatality where he rips off your leg and beats you to death with it, not to mention everything about his live action performance in Mortal Kombat Mythologies, which I'd love to talk about in a future video, all of this made him a staple Mortal Kombat character for me. The other new inclusions I can't quite give similar praise. Tanya, Reiko, Kai, Fujin. The only reason I know of Jarek is because of his ending. And as for the new bad guy Shinnok, I gotta say, I never gave a shit about this guy either. With Shao Kahn dead, he's supposed to be the new head villain, a fallen elder god at that, but all this means is that he has Shang Tsung's transformation gimmick, and because Mortal Kombat Gold runs off of a CD, there's this very annoying slight pause that happens whenever he copies another fighter's moveset. That sucks. No thank you. Mortal Kombat 4, you don't need to play this one. It felt like this was made out of obligation. Everyone's going 3D, they had to go 3D. Instead, they didn't really go 3D. This game was still primarily 2D and uses a worse version of MK3's combo system. Everyone still got 2 fatalities, and some of them, you know, they're pretty cool, like Shinnok's large skeleton hand thing. But the stage fatalities were lame, friendships were gone, no babalities, no animalities, no brutalities, and though I can take a Mortal Kombat game without those inclusions, in MK4's case, their exclusion just makes the whole thing seem rushed. An arcade game released for a market that by 1997 was already well on the decline. In fact, Mortal Kombat 4 would be the last Mortal Kombat game to have an arcade release. From this point forward, starting with Deadly Alliance in 2002, it's home consoles from this point forward. Truly an end to an era. It's just too bad it was more of a wet fart than anything else. Now, if there's 2 Mortal Kombat games that define what classic Mortal Kombat is for me, it's 2 and 3, assuming you're playing with friends, of course. They're a little stiff and limited compared to what you might be used to in today's climate, but I think they still hold up, so I implore you to try them for yourself if you're curious. When we next meet up for Mortal Kombat goodness later down the road, I'll be looking at the actual jump to 3D and the sequels to follow: Deadly Alliance, Deception, Armageddon, and I guess Mortal Kombat vs. DC. This franchise, I swear, it really goes places, doesn't it? But if you absolutely need your Mortal Kombat fixings now, you can find a whole bunch of our Mortal Kombat playthroughs over on the Super Gamer Brothers Let's Play channel. SGB likes to play. The Mortal Kombat stuff, to this day, remains some of the favorite things we've ever done for that channel. Is because, like, we're all Mortal Kombat fans, and we all like to take the piss out of the story mode, the characters, and just have a laugh, just poking fun of a lot of things. And I really can't wait for us to eventually do the Mortal Kombat 1 story mode for the channel, and pray that we don't have to, you know, do too much rigorous editing just to keep the videos in the green, but we might end up having to do that anyway. God, like, I have to stress again, this video was just like a mental hurdles in my mind. It's like, is it even worth doing? Because it's gonna get flagged. It's fake violence, but it doesn't matter. If it looks like blood, YouTube's gonna flag it anyway, and there goes all the views and the revenue, and God, this It sucks. Where's the blood code to disable demonetization for YouTube, for fuck's sake? But as always, thank you all for tuning in and watching me talk Mortal Kombat for a few minutes. Not a few minutes every time. It took like half an hour to talk about this game. But as always, let's thank some patrons. Oh my god. Is it really obvious that I don't script this shit? All right, so continuing on with more shout-outs to some $10 patrons here. Again, you can find information for my Patreon on the card up top or in the description below. It's in one of those areas. Ninja Joe 1807, Man with the Plan, quote, Rhythm and Tempo, Admiral Oni-chan, or Oni-chan, I'm sorry. I don't watch anime. Zach Boecker, Nolan Thunder, Shogun, Masatsu Mike, Damix Cornlad, Steven Nelson, Wade Achelli, or is it Achelli, Elitio Dylan, aka Damn Lucky, Ryan Poe, Leslie Molnar, Neo Sandman 4040, Spider Knife, Max Dreyer, Lon, Mysterious Mr. E, Chaotic Meatball, King Disaster, Dracula, XX Robin 41XX, that's a MySpace username it looks like, Fat Egg, Tao, Docking 23, Rodolfo Zorilla Rivera, Satsuma Kaken, or Koken, Waffle D, PSI Win, Buck 39213, JDude 93, DFM Stephen Wright, Cyrus D Vania, M450 NF0X. I feel like I just put in a password there for an old game. Jerf Rockstar, Samuel Bull, Liam, Mevin Odyssey, Nerdzilla, Bubby, and was it Northeast? Ven, Barry Aldridge, Carradine or Carradine, Alex Goodrich, your boy Beowulf, Vengel Jurgo, Exobear, James Acosta, Frostfang, Ian, Elijah, Myzox, David Alicia, Powerful One, Hussein Al Ibrahim, Tucker, Honor Lynn, Jojo Harder, Josh Gourmet, Skullman, Zeno Jace, J Wolf Quanner, Geno Sauce, Colada, Aeon 3, Veil 4, Riley Thompson, Subranner, Zendao, Griff, Bad Guy Not Fun Guy, and finally for today, John Luvano. Thank you very much all for your support. It really does mean a lot every single time, and I'm more than happy to say your names out loud just for the sake of, I don't know, having you pop a boner or something. I don't know, but either way, thank you all very much for your time and company. I'll see you guys in the next video. As always, have yourselves a fantastic night and take care.